What's up, everybody? I've got Tory from Enuff Z'Nuff here with me tonight. What's up, buddy?
How's it going?
Man, just gearing up for Christmas 2020 this week. Looking forward to getting some Florida sunshine and seeing everybody at a event that, they've taken some precautions at. So it gives you a little peace of mind for all of this. So, just riding out my last day or two here in Kentucky right now. That's what I'm doing. How about you, man? What have you been up to here recently?
Oh man, I've been in the studio all day. I took a little break and did some yard work. I'm working on a new project, which is called Sneaky Doodle. It's named after our dog, Benny.
That's great.
Yeah, it's me and my girlfriend, Sandra, and Dan Hill from Enuff Z'Nuff.
Okay, nice.
So,
What kind of music is this?
oh gosh, it's like a folk rock country. It's hard to explain. I did a little bit of everything.
Nice.
I started it as like a Gordon Lightfoot kind of Simon and Garfunkel thing, and then I sent the first song to Dan, and he sent back like 30 tracks. I was like, "Hey man, could you put some percussion on this?" And he sent back like 30 tracks. He had more percussion tracks than I had completed every other track. So he doubled the track count, and he really turned it into a different kind of thing. So I guess we'll see.
That's great. And that's kind of the beauty of when you start adding all the different parts into it. It kind of takes shape into something that you might not have ever heard in the beginning process of it.
Definitely. The first one, I was like, hey, I just put some really simple percussion on it. And then as we started going more and more songs, I would just send it to him and be like, hey man, do your thing. And then all of a sudden I'd get this huge folder of crazy percussion and wood, all kinds of stuff. It's super cool to hear those songs take shape.
Nice. I'd assume you're handling most of the vocals on this as well then, right?
Yeah, most of it's like a duo between me and Sandra, my girlfriend. So
nice.
A lot of that. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Excited to hear some of that music as well.
Hopefully we'll get that out. I don't know. Are we supposed to release music now or not release music now? I think we're just supposed to do fucking live performances every night on Facebook or something. I don't know.
Hey, you were until you started getting zucked for it, and they'll delete your band page for it now if you're not careful. So
I'm glad I didn't get into that.
I did one for my birthday last week, but it was like under an hour long, and I didn't save the video on Facebook once it was over. So nothing bad happened to me yet. Mark Zuckerberg hasn't come and dragged me out of my house in handcuffs. So I've got that going for me at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Let's dive into some of these questions I got prepared for you this evening. I keep this pretty relaxed, man. To me, this is just two guys hanging out on Zoom. So, and
yeah, let's try not to piss anyone off here.
I always stay away from stuff like that, man. And it's funny because some guys will still just take the conversation there anyway. So I still try to, keep my poker face on whenever stuff like that starts getting said or something. So, it's just, like I said, I keep it real relaxed, and this is just me and you hanging out for an hour or so. So, and
cool.
Looking forward to this. So let's dive right into this. Where did you grow up at?
I grew up in Iowa, middle of nowhere.
Nice.
I actually, until I moved to Waverly, Iowa, is where I graduated from high school. It was Waverly, Iowa. Super small town. I think it was around 8,000 back then when I was there. And the day after I graduated, I moved the hell away from there and went to LA.
Nice. What year was that whenever you went to LA?
1987. Yeah.
Nice. So you got out there right
Yep.
right when a lot of shit was going on then. That's exciting. especially to be out there at such a young age, man.
Yeah, 18, man. I'd never really been to I'd been to Minneapolis, you know, like school shopping with my parents, but I had never really been on my own in a place like Los Angeles. And you know, living right in downtown Hollywood, Yucca and Highland at Yucca Manor. When you're
Nice.
18, straight out of the cornfield, that was a pretty big change. And
Nice.
87, I mean, that's, you know, Gazzari's, and that's when the stuff was exploding out there. You'd walk down the strip and just be knee deep in flyers every night. So
Absolutely.
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, what were you doing when you first got out there? Did you hook up with the band pretty quick, or what were you doing?
I didn't. I went out to go to GIT.
Oh, wow. Okay, nice.
Yep. So I started GIT. Oh man, like the downfall of being in LA in 1987 was every ad for band for a guitar player would say, "No GIT."
Oh,
That was
wow.
seriously in every hairband ad was "No GIT." Fuck those guys.
That's crazy. You'd think you'd
So
want one of those well-versed guys that knew what the hell they were doing.
yeah, I don't. I guess the thing was like a lot of people just shredded, you know, like with no feeling, and I don't know. It was probably partially true, I guess, from being around the hallways and stuff there, that there was a lot of just playing a ton of notes with no feel.
Everybody
So
wanted to be Eddie and Ingve and Steve Vai and all those guys, but didn't have, I guess, the emotion behind it all to back it up.
yeah, that's true. That's true. That was
That's all right.
probably me at the time too, as well.
Hey, it's all right. You live and you learn. So, any particular experiences that stick out from your time at GIT?
Oh my God. Every day. I mean, Paul Gilbert lived in the building next to us. So like we'd
Oh,
be
wow.
walking down. I mean, we lived at McCadden Place. Basically, you just walked down and then his building was right there. So like, you know, you're walking to school and just see Billy Sheehan and Paul Gilbert walking to school. And, you know, you're walking down the hallway at the building, at the MI building, and you look, there's like these little windows that you could look in the counseling things, and you walk down the hall and just like hear somebody shredding, and you like look in, and it's like, you look around, you know, like that's Paul Gilbert sitting there by himself. And you
That
just like
is
kind of knock
nuts.
on the window, and he's like, come on in, you know, the nicest guy you would ever want to meet. Come in here. And you go in and he's like, hands you his Ibanez with the fringe on it.
Yeah.
Here, play this. And then he grabs the drum machine and is playing Strutter, like, come on in. Like, oh God, I know every Kiss song, you know, at the time. And it's like, here I am, 18 in Hollywood, straight out of the cornfields, playing Strutter on Paul Gilbert's, you know, Destroyer, with him playing drum machine. It's pretty crazy.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. So, there was, you hear about a lot of guys that went to like YOMIT and GIT, and it seems like some pretty well knowledge was learned during their time. So it's cool to hear shit like that, especially Paul Gilbert, a just absolute fucking monster on the guitar. So that had
Oh
to be
man,
a
every
treat in
teacher.
itself.
Oh yeah, every teacher and every, you know, it was awesome. It was like being immersed, and you would be there, you know, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. Maybe run home and get some mac and cheese or some ramen noodles, and then go right back, you know. But you were just immersed in shredding 24 hours a day there, and all the teachers, even every people that you would never hear of. And one of them's my Facebook friend now, which is Wesley Matsuda. He's just this monster guitar player I'd never heard of. You know, a lot of guys you didn't hear of, but you go and you learn stuff from. You're like, whoa, who is this guy? I think I told this on another podcast thing. Like I went in for they give you a little test to try and assess where you land. And, oh, it put you in tier 1, 2, or 3 or something like that. And I went in, it's this crazy old Einstein looking guy, like, you know, and he's like, well, what do you got? It's like Doc from Back to the Future. And I'm like, that's a pretty eccentric guy. And I go back, and one of my neighbors had been there for a long time. And he was like, who'd you get for your test? I was like, this crazy old white-haired guy. He's like, dude, that was Carl Schroeder. He's like this guy that like genius piano player that's played for every president since the 50s. Like, I had no idea. I'm just a moron from Iowa.
That's great. That's awesome, man. So you were 18 when you get out there and you were going to GIT. When did you eventually link up with the band when you were out there?
I didn't.
Oh, wow.
I had moved out there with a drummer from Iowa, and we played a lot together, and we'd form bands, at GIT, but never anything that played the Strip or anything like that. And then at the end of, kind of towards the end of the year, we were trying to decide what we were going to do. And there was a teacher named Les Wise, and he was like, man, you guys you're from Iowa, like the middle of everywhere. There's like little hubs all over he's like, well, why would you stay in LA? This place is so saturated with musicians and bands. He's like, if you went back to Iowa and started a band there, it'd be so much easier to get going. And we it was a eureka moment for us where we just went, yeah, let's go back and be a big fish in a small pond, which didn't really happen. But we formed a band called Tornado Alley back in Iowa. And that kind of started off the touring stuff. We linked up with another band in Iowa and just started touring. We got an agent and played all over the US in Tornado Alley. So
nice.
That kind of started it, yeah.
So you were in Iowa, which is not too far away from Chicago. Is this around the time that you met Chip and all those guys, or did you not meet them until later on?
I didn't meet those guys until way down the road. I'm trying to think, like the first time I met Chip. I know where it was. I don't know the year. I'm terrible with years, but certainly well into the 90s. They were still on a tour bus. Their tour bus had broke down. They were playing a place called the Filling Station in Lee's Summit, and their tour bus broke down. This is like skips a little bit because I had moved to Kansas City after Tornado Alley and started a band called Motherlode. And we were working with a promoter from Chicago named Bruce Corsone. And he knew Chip and Donnie really well, I guess, or what he said. And I'm assuming that's true from knowing that today. But he just said, I said, man, I'm going to see Enuff Z'Nuff tonight at this bar. And he was like, you go up and knock on that door and you tell him that Bruce Corsone sent you. I'm like, that is so far away from my nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super shy guy, as you know, from trying to get me to do this thing. I just knocked on the door. I was like, what the hell? I knock on the door and Chip opens it up and he's like, who is it? And I go, I'm a friend of Bruce Corsone's. And he goes, shoves the door open. He goes, any friend of Bruce Corsone, get on here.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned Motherlode, which is a band I definitely want to talk a little bit about because you just put out a new CD. And I said, well, I say new lightly because if I'm correct, this is old material that you went back and re-recorded the vocals yourself on.
Yep.
So talk to me about the decision to do that.
That was a band that I had in Kansas City in the mid 90s. We recorded one album. The singer had a really kind of more of the hair metal kind of, Queensryche kind of voice, which is great. It seemed like at the time I was way more into Saigon Kick and Alice in Chains and stuff like that. King's X.
Yeah, man.
And that really came out, it was all drop D, heavy riffs. And it came down to, he had sang in the band Tornado Alley with me and just like crushing, like when we would tour, we go to the Toy Tiger and Louisville, like all those
nice
clubs. We were playing stuff that nobody else, a lot of other bands couldn't, like Badlands and Queens. We opened with Queen of the Reich every night. It's like, who the hell can sing that when you're touring, playing venues 6 or 7 nights in a row? The guy was a monster at that stuff. But as we kind of evolved in our musical tastes and the musical tastes of everyone, and started tying flannels around our waist and wearing Doc Martin and tuning down to low D, it didn't really work for my ear as much. And that the original Motherlode album, it got a little bit of traction. And a crazy thing, in Salt Lake City, my buddy at the time, I had no idea, this guy named Gary Michaels had a station called K-Rock in Salt Lake City. Man, he picked up the record. And it's so weird to think about, because my friend was a truck driver, and there's no cell phones or anything. He calls me on the landline. He's like, man, I just came over the mountain into Salt Lake City and I heard Motherlode on the radio. And I'm like, what? It was so nuts. And then, we found out that I wrote the station a letter and sent that to him, just said, thank you for playing our record. And then I was going to the NAMM show like later on that year, and my flight got bumped into Salt Lake City because of a storm. And I was like, I had like an hour. So I looked in a phone book and I said, I'm going to call K-Rock and just say thank you. And I called him. The guy I was like, hey, this is Tory from the band Motherlode. I just wanted to call and say thank you. I'm in Salt Lake City on a layover. The guy was like, no, it's not. You wouldn't know. Get out of here. I was just like, no, I swear. I'm like, I just wanted to call and say thank you for playing our record. He was like, oh man, I'm going to come get you. I was like, no, I don't have time. But that just, for some reason, because of Gary and those guys at K-Rock, that album really blew up in that one town.
Nice.
Nowhere else, unfortunately. But
hey man, that's at least whenever you want to do the anniversary shows, you can always go to Salt Lake City and have a crowd.
Yeah. Man, I still love playing in Salt Lake City after all these years. That was one place that with Motherlode, we'd go and play like, big clubs and sell out multiple nights and theaters, because of the K-Rock stuff is super cool.
That's great.
And then last time Enuff Z'Nuff and Great White played there, man, I ran into so many people that knew, like, aren't you in Motherlode? I was like, yep. Super cool.
That's very awesome. When something like that, where you say it never really got too much traction, but when you find those select group of people who really connected with it, it always makes for a special moment.
Yeah. And that's why, I wanted to redo the vocals. At the time, I wasn't really singing very much. And the more I started singing in bands and stuff like that, I just always thought, man, I'd like to go back, because I wrote a lot of those songs with me kind of singing, when I was writing the tunes. And I was like, man, I'd really like to go back. And somehow I found the 2-inch tapes, all of the 2-inch tapes, and I got them, they put them in an oven and baked them and put them on Pro Tools. And I was like, spent a couple months singing way out of my range for some of the songs that I think I skipped one or two on there that I was just like, can't do that. But it was a great experience. It actually helped my singing voice even more, just to kind of find some different spots in my voice. So I really enjoyed it. And now I ended up signing a deal with an Australian company called Melodic Rock Records. Some guys that I met over there, super cool label in Australia. So that album's going to come out in Australia here pretty soon too. So
nice. Well, congratulations on that. I'm a big fan of it. I had it in my car today while I was driving to and from my daughter's house. So
cool.
You mentioned those influences like Alice in Chains and King's X, which you can very much hear on this record. Those were the three bands that came to my mind every time I listen to this. Is always Alice in Chains, King's X, and Collective Soul. There's a little bit of that in there too. So those were the three bands that stuck out. And I love hearing that you're a King's X fan as well, because, it's rare that you find other people that know who King's X is, unfortunately. And to me, if there's a terrible story in rock and roll of one band not getting enough credit, it's King's X to me every time, man.
For sure. My God, when I lived in Kansas City and I had a band called the Black Mollies, Benny's like, this story again. No, somehow we ended up on a mini tour with King's X with my band, the Black Mollies. We played like a Kansas City show and a Wichita show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was so cool at the time for me because I was such a huge fan of King's X. I was just like, I cannot believe we're even doing multiple shows with these guys, and they're all so cool and nice and, you know, down to earth. So
Yeah, and that's like right there in their part of the country too. So
yeah, they did really well. They did really well down there.
What year was this? Do you remember?
Whew. God, when was that Black Molly's? When was Mr. Bulbous? I think it was around that.
2002, 2003, I think was. I want to say 2002 when that record came out.
I was thinking probably around the early 2000s when that was. Yeah.
I love that record, but I love all fucking King's X. But there's great stuff on that album. Like Mr. Wilson is one of my favorite King's X tunes.
Yeah.
So that had to be exciting. One of the gigs, unfortunately, that I lost because of COVID was opening up for King's X at the Token in Detroit.
Oh man, that would have been an awesome show. Yeah, that's such a fun place to play.
Yeah, that's where me and you actually we saw each other for the first time, but I didn't really connect with anybody in the band that night. I've told the story before, but this was January of this year, and I was outside while you guys were getting ready to get back in the van and head back to the hotel before everything opened, and we were just loading in ourselves, and me and Alex were standing there both smoking a cigarette and kind of gave each other a nod. And so, but we all saw each other there, but this is the first time we're actually getting to talk. So the Token is a cool place, and unfortunately I wasn't going to be playing with like Whiskey A Go Go or one of those bands. It was actually my solo band, so we were going to be doing all of my solo material and that shit. So that was a big accomplishment for me to get my solo band on a opening bill for King's X, and then of course it kind of got lost by the way of the beast this year.
Oh man, so many of those stories so far, you know.
Yeah,
man. Since March.
There's silver lining to all of it, man. They may, albeit might be small, but there is silver lining to. There's good things to take away from any situation, and I think that helps you just appreciate anything more. So, looking forward to getting that rescheduled date on the books whenever we're allowed to do that.
Yeah, God, every time I get an email from our agent, it's just like, oh, and they've pushed stuff back pretty far this time. So, but I remember when we came back from Australia with Enuff Z'Nuff this year, I think that was March or the end of June. We were supposed to go right to Europe, or we were going to the UK and then right to Europe, and all that obviously got canceled. We got stuck in Australia. I wish we got stuck for a little bit longer, but. But all the UK got blown out, all of Europe got blown out.
Yeah.
And then we were supposed to come back and do a long run with Faster Pussycat in a bus. And of course that got blown out. They pushed it back to November, and we were all just like, oh man, November, I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's right. We were actually the opening band for that at the Diesel up in Chesterfield, Michigan. So that's another gig that I lost this year because of COVID. So it's unfortunate, man. But from the way it looks, 2021, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully a lot of these shows that everybody was looking forward to, there's actually a realistic chance of them happening, even if it's later in the year, like fall or winter time, because I've seen some major tours get announced here recently, and you still kind of have that feeling in the pit of your stomach that I think we're going to have like PTSD for the next like 2 years, or we're just afraid that everything's just not going to happen. But luckily there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel right now.
Yeah, I hope so. They pushed the Pussycat thing back to June now. So really hoping that we're a little bit back to normal by June. We could just figure out a way to get out, everything's safe for everybody, but let's hope.
Yeah, and that's kind of the other side of it as well, because obviously everybody wants to be out playing as much as they can right now. But you want everybody, not just yourself, you want the crowd to be safe, you want everybody to feel comfortable, because from what I've seen, there have been shows happening in some places with less restrictions, but the crowd capacity, even say they let 50% in, they're still not anywhere near 50% because people just aren't comfortable going to shows right now.
I know I'm not. I know
Yeah.
the show we played in Kansas City, I wore a mask the entire time, and it was, it was a small place, and I loved playing there. I loved the owner, super cool, and did everything he could to make us comfortable, but they just didn't, nobody gave a shit. And Kansas City was getting way worse at the time. This is just, maybe a month ago when everything was just really surging in Kansas City. I don't know. I don't want to get all political about it and have people go, "Oh, you fucking pussy, go ahead and play shows and just fucking wear a mask, fucking bullshit." But, I want everyone to feel comfortable, and I certainly don't want to. I have pre-existing conditions more than most, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. You never know what somebody's story actually is. And if it was just a situation where you could go out and literally only put yourself at risk when you're doing this, it would be a totally different ball game. But unfortunately, that's not the case, because you can go out and be fine and then come home and infect somebody that never even left at all. And then they've got to deal with that now as well. So, I mean, there's a right and a wrong way to do things right now. And like I said, fortunately, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And that's the only really good thing that we're all waiting for in 2021.
Yep.
I think it was today that the first vaccination got administered here in the United States. So it's a step in the right direction. It's still going to take a while for it to really make a difference. But I think I've read that by the end of March, they're hoping to have vaccinated 100 million. So that's 4 months away, which it sounds like a long time. Before COVID, 4 months was a long time. But now it's like we've been sitting here for almost a year now. It's like, what's another 4 months if it means we can get back to normal, man? So it's going to happen when it happens, and that's really all we can do is wait right now.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Like I said, I'm a big fan of the Motherlode record that you put out, and the vocals sound great on it. I haven't heard it with the original vocals, but good job to you for doing that on there.
Thank you.
I think it sounds very cohesive and with the music on there. So if you're listening, go check out the Repaint album, Motherlode. You got to get it. And what'd you say the label that it's coming out on in Australia?
In Australia, it'll be on Melodic Rock Records. So.
Nice. Are they going to put it out on vinyl?
Boy, that's a good question. I don't know.
You got to find out and let me know. I got to get that for my vinyl collection.
I would love to have. The only piece of vinyl I've ever been a part of was the Diamond Boy.
Oh, nice.
So,
I actually didn't know that was on vinyl. So now I've got to go find a copy of that somewhere.
I'll send you a link to my eBay when I put it up.
Okay. Sounds good to me, man.
I think I bought like 10. We did an in-store at a record store in Chicago. And I think I bought like 10 copies of it. Was on red vinyl for Record Store Day.
Oh, nice.
I think I bought 10 copies of that to give to friends and stuff. And I'm like, geez, I wish I would have kept those so I could sell them now that I'm not freaking working for a year.
And merch has been a big way that some artists have really kept alive this year. Speaking of people like that, your bandmate Alex Cain, you see him all the time on social media, just packing up boxes and boxes and boxes of merch. So Alex Cain is killing the merch game right now.
Hustling.
Yeah.
Chicago boy, hustling.
Yeah, so we'll kind of segue off of that. When did you meet Alex for the first time? Did you know him before he rejoined the band in 2018, or was that the first time you had met him?
Boy, we actually hung out. This is the dumbest thing ever. He was tour managing a band that toured with us in Europe. So we were all in the same van. And I was the biggest Life, Sex, and Death fan ever,
Nice.
That was probably a huge influence on the Motherlode stuff as well. I love that band. I saw them at the Cat House in L.A.
Oh wow, nice.
And I told him the story because the first time I actually met Alex was at NAMM. I think I don't know who was playing, maybe like In This Moment or someone was playing at the Grove in Anaheim for a NAMM kind of thing. And I saw him, he was just standing there, you know, maybe in the beer line or something. And we just started chatting. And I was telling him the story about seeing those guys at the Cat House. And sometime during the gig, Stanley had just ran out the back door and never came back. And he was like, "Oh, I totally remember that." And I was like, "Yeah, Robert Mason came up and like sang a couple songs from Lynch Mob."
Oh,
and
wow.
I didn't know the connection there, but Lynch Mob had opened, or maybe they opened for Lynch Mob on a whole tour. So I was like, "Whoa, the guy from the second Lynch Mob album is getting up and singing with Life, Sex, and Death." Pretty cool.
That's great. Yeah, Robert Mason is a fucking fantastic vocalist as well.
He's a great singer.
I'm a big fan of the second Cry of Love record that he sang on, which we talk about nobody knowing King's X. Not a lot of people know Cry of Love either. So,
man, those were great records.
Yeah, both of them were great. And I'm in the minority of people who know Cry of Love, where I prefer the second one with Robert Mason on it. And that's nothing against the first record. That record is absolutely outstanding rock as well. I think that first record kind of reminds me of the situation with the Black Crowes, where it's like, if those guys had come out in like the mid 70s, like if that first Cry of Love record would have came out in the 70s, dude, they'd have been the biggest fucking rock stars on the planet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
timing.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, Black Crowes still did fantastic for themselves. Cry of Love, they were more of the underground band of the '90s that is mostly musicians seem to know about. But yeah, Robert Mason, a fantastic vocalist. So that's a cool story. I had Jeremy on here last week, and he was telling the story about the first time he saw Life, Sex, and Death, and he was like, still to this day, he's like, I think that is probably the best club show I've ever seen in my life was Life, Sex, and Death. So.
Oh man, yeah, and I remember Alex just like he had like this like spring system or something on his cabinets. He would run backwards and just slam into his cabinets, and they would like it looked like they were gonna fall over. I was saying how awesome that was to him, and the band that opened up for them was Mark McGrath from Sugar. I think it must have a band called the Shrinky Dinks. And Alex was saying for some reason he carried a hockey stick while he was on stage. I don't know what the fuck was going on with that, but Alex said that. And I think Mark McGrath is he's a big like 80s metal guy. Like he loves that stuff. So.
Well, there you go.
Fun little. Yeah. So back off, now that we've gone on a 15-minute tangent about Alex Cain and Life, Sex, and Death, we could go on a lot of those because actually when Alex joined the band, when he came back to Enuff Z'Nuff, we played a show at the Arcada in Chicago, and Stanley came out to the show.
Oh, nice.
So we were talking to him. I was trying to get a selfie with him the whole night. And for some reason, he was being a little weird about it. Like he was taking fucking pictures of everybody. And every time I would ask, he would get all fucking weird. And I'm just like, this fucker not want to take a picture. Why is it just me? And he's just like doing the dance and stuff we were talking about in videos. And he fucking broke into the Stanley dance at the Arcada right in the foyer there. But pretty funny. So when the chance came, it was Jeremy and Phil. I think it's Jeremy and Phil, and we're backstage, and they're like, "Oh, okay, Stanley, we're gonna do a selfie, or we're gonna do a picture." And I jump in there, and Alex likes to say that I shoved him out of the way, which maybe I did. But I was like, "I gotta get in on this. Get out of here."
That's fucking great.
Pretty funny. But yeah, so to go back to where we was Alex was tour managing this band in Europe, so we were all on the same tour, that's where we got to know each other and fell in love.
Nice.
No.
Yeah.
We had a great time. We had a great time on that tour, and just I think became pretty good friends there. So
Yeah, Alex is
that's
a good guy, and he's a hell of a guitarist as well. So he helped out a little bit on the new Minefield record. He wrote some of Jeremy's lyrics and melodies for him on his song, and then played a guitar solo on another track. And I still genuinely say that Alex might have played the best guitar solo on the album. So Alex is a great guy, and it's cool to hear stories like that about him. So we'll kind of segue into the Enuff Z'Nuff thing a little bit. So you joined the band for the first time in 2008. How did that originally come about?
Whew. The drummer for the Black Mollies was from Chicago. His name is Randy Scott. When he came into the Black Mollies, he was filling in with Enuff Z'Nuff over the years, I guess quite a bit. So I went to Rocklahoma.
Okay.
And that was when CJ Zuter was playing with them, and they did Rocklahoma. And I was on their bus, and Randy, we were talking to Chip. I was telling him the story about meeting him in a different lifetime, in the early 90s, which of course I learned that lesson so many times that nobody gives a fuck if you've met them. No matter how funny your story is, nobody that was famous gives a shit that you met them. I have some of the funniest stories about meeting people, before I was in Enuff Z'Nuff. And then it seems like we're at a bar, we're hanging out, I'm talking to Brad Gillis. This seems like a great time to tell him a super funny story about how we met. And my band opened for Night Ranger one time at a club, and he did not give the slightest fuck. And I was like, I should stop doing this. I need to. But then I was telling Chip on the bus the same kind of deal. I was like telling him, about what a funny story it was that I had met him, and when their bus, your bus had broke down. Yeah. And and you had a drug dealer on there. He was showing you different kinds of yeah. Oh, and then they're putting videotapes and the things that was super funny. He's like, yeah, I get it. It's super funny. And I'm like, God, I need to stop doing this. But I probably never learn. Whenever I meet somebody that I really liked, back in the day that I met, and it was a funny story, I can't help just saying, man, we met under a really funny circumstance. And you just see the look on their face. Oh God, he's going to tell me a story about how we met. But
well, that's great. I did the same thing to you a few minutes ago. So you're not alone on it, man.
So off of that tangent, and then back to the bus on Rocklahoma, Randy said, man, CJ's going to Japan with this Disco Explosion band for like 3 months. We needed a guitar player to fill in. And he just looks at Chip and he's like, this is the guy. Tory should fill in. And Chip's like, all right, I'll give you a chance. He'd come to Chicago. And I guess I was going to do 2 shows. I was going to do the Key Club.
Oh, wow. Nice.
In Hollywood, RIP. And then the Golden Nugget or some, or Four Queens or something in Vegas for the Las Vegas Music Awards. Those were going to be my 2 shows. And I went to Wakanda, Illinois, at an antique shop, and I rehearsed. I was like, man, I'm going to learn these songs really good and impress this Chip guy. And I went there. We played one song, and both of our guitars are still on, and he just comes up and hugs me with our guitars go. Like, bro, you're my guy. You're my guy. You want to travel the world? I was like, sure, why not? He's like, you like coffee? I was like, I love coffee. He's like, you got threads? I was like, I might have to work on that. So
that's great. The coffee thing seems to be one of the first questions that comes up when you're trying to figure out if people are compatible and everything. I know that was, it's always one of the first things. It's like, how do you feel about coffee? I fucking love coffee. It's like, all right, this is going to work. So,
Yep.
That's great. So you were in the band from 2008 till 14, and then from I think 14 till 16, you took a little time off from the band. So what were you doing during your time away from Enuff Z'Nuff?
Man, I did a gig in Puerto Rico with the Bullet Boys.
Oh, nice.
And well, I toured with Mark for a year, unfortunately. Not to go into that at all. And but I got suckered into one last gig in Puerto Rico, and the drummer at that time, his name was Brent Arcement. We roomed together, and we ended up talking about it. And I was saying, "Oh man, I'm going to do this. I got this country band idea." And he was like, "Oh man, I'd love to do a country band." And I when I got home, I sent him some tracks, and that's how I started the New Black Seven with him. And he flew to Iowa, and we recorded an EP, and that kind of started the New Black Seven going. And I guess towards the end of that, we switched a million members of that band. To tell you how I got back in Enuff Z'Nuff was I kind of saw the writing on the wall there that the New Black Seven was never going to tour. Then all I wanted to do with that band was I basically just wanted to model it after the new Blackberry Smoke and just record records and tour. And sit, buddy, how are you doing? And kind of right around the time that Chip called, I was like, fuck, man, nobody in this band's gonna. It just wasn't. We weren't able to get on the road, and I don't know if anybody wanted to be on the road, and that's all I wanted to do at the time. And Chip called me right at that time, and I was just like, bro, if I call you next week, will you pick up the phone? Just say.
That's great.
And then he called the next week, and he told me what he had going on. That was kind of when he was going to start singing. And I was like, he was like, will you come play with me? He's like, I got Tony Fennell. I'm going to sing. And I was like, I'll come to Chicago and check it out. And I went and rehearsed, and I was like, sounds really cool. You should have done this a long time ago.
Yeah, Chip does an awesome job singing all those tunes, man. Doesn't miss a beat. And, I always have good kudos for bassists that can play and sing at the same time, because some of those walking bass lines and everything it's a bits to get the timing down to still be able to sing and do that. So Chip does a hell of a job pulling off the vocals as well.
Oh my God, dude, that guy is so talented. His bass playing is from a different planet. It's just amazing bass playing. And the fact that he can sing and play all that stuff is pretty crazy.
So how quick was it once you got back into the band that you guys started working on Diamond Boy?
It was actually a couple of years, because right when I came back, they had just released Clown's Lounge when I came back.
Yeah.
And I think not a lot of people, but some people thought that I had played on that.
Which was mostly older stuff that was on that, correct?
Yep. And I think Dog on a Bone, Benjamin. Dog on a Bone was a new song. I think that was a new song that Tony and Chip had written. So I think some people assumed that I had played on that, but I didn't. And then, so Clown's Lounge came out right when I came back. And I think we toured that for a couple years. And then, Diamond Boy came together kind of. Chip was just basically doing demos and stuff. And he was asking me if I wanted to hear some of the new stuff. And I was like, send it over, man. I'd love to. I'd play some. I had a little home studio, in Iowa. And I listened to the first tune. I wish I could remember what it was, because I went, oh man, I could kill on this. And I got out my Mesa Boogie and plugged it in. And I think that night, like he didn't send it and say, play something on it. He just sent it. And I said, I'm going to play something on this. I'm going to send it back, and he's going to shit his pants. And so I put quite a few guitars on there, and then I sent it back, and he was just like, bro, that's incredible. I hate what you did. And I'm like, send me the rest of it. He kept sending me songs. He'd send me another one. He's like, I can't believe what you did on that. And I'm just like, I'm going to crush every song on this record.
That's great.
Yeah, and a lot of it, you know, it's very Beatle-esque. I thought a lot of Diamond Boy had a lot of Beatles kind of feel. And so I hadn't really played slide that much in my life before that.
Yeah.
But I was like, this needs slide guitar for sure. And I listened to a ton of like Jeff Beck and George Harrison.
Great.
And, then I would ride the bike for like an hour, you know, ride the stationary bike for an hour and listen to George Harrison. And then I would just go just all sweaty. And I would just bring up this Beatle-esque sounding song and start playing slide. And I was like, man, I love playing. I play a ton of slide now. So that really made me fall in love with playing slide guitar.
Yeah, for me personally, it's like I've always been a big fan of slide, but my slide playing has never been as great as I wished it was, because it's not quite as easy as you would think, just picking that thing up. And you know, your whole positioning is fucking different because you're right on top of the frets, so it's hard to keep track of where you're at. But it gets easier as you go, like anything. But and you know, you talk about the Beatle influence, and Chip just has that in his blood, so that's good. It's a good thing. We got some questions coming up for the dog as well too. So,
are you ready, Benjamin?
Yeah,
you want to answer some questions? He said.
That's a gorgeous looking dog, though.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing the music that's named after it. So,
Sneaky Doodle. That's you, Benjamin.
Well, cool. You know, Diamond Boy, a great record. So, from what it sounds like, you were doing mostly just playing then, and did you help with the writing at all on it?
Nope, not at all. Chip I think him and Tony basically kind of hammered out a lot of that stuff, and then he would just send it along as they, you know, as it got there.
Nice. Well, still, you got your seed on that album, and you know, it's always satisfying to hear the finished product whenever it's done. So, a good record all around. And you know, whenever we had played with you guys back in January, Brainwashed wasn't out yet, so that was the most recent record out of the Enuff Z'Nuff camp. So that's what I was like listening to heavy leading up to that gig. So very good record. You seem to consistently pump out good music, so that makes me even more excited about this new stuff that you've been working on.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, cool, man. I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I thank you so much for coming on here and talking to me. Looking forward to seeing each other this coming weekend at the Christmas Expo. So if anybody's listening, don't forget Christmas 2020 this weekend in Sarasota, Florida. Go to meethook.live and get your streaming tickets. Enuff Z'Nuff is going to be one of the awesome bands that is there playing along with myself. So it's just going to be a weekend of killer music. And I don't know about you, but I'm a huge Kiss fan, so this is exciting for me.
Yeah, me too. It'll be good to see everybody. It'll be good to see those guys.
Yeah, of course. And so you guys go pick up Diamond Boy, go pick up Brainwashed Generation, go pick up the Repaint Motherlode album, and go follow Tory on his social media so you can check out this new music whenever it comes out. So Tory, me and you will be able to say goodbye off air here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and end the live show, but thank you everybody for tuning in, and I'll see you tomorrow night.